first of all, I guess I should open this by saying good morning and welcome. So this is a morning gentle yoga, or not gentle, it's a morning Vinyasa yoga class. But we're going to start in a kind of a gentle way. So you need something that you can put under your shoulder blades. A blanket is really helpful. Now what I've done with this blanket is I folded it into eighths, basically, in half again, and then one more time. Is that quarters? Anyway. So now I'm going to make this, essentially I'm going to fold it into thirds, but I'm just like rolling it. And what this creates is a long shape that's long enough to go completely underneath my spine and support my head. Now, the ends that have the folded surface, that is going to go against my lower back. And the end that has all these loose surfaces, that's going to go up above my head. So I'm going to lay this down first. Oh, hold on, there's a spider. We'll see if he will go on his merry way. I'm going to have to encourage him. Keep going, buddy. You're making a very unusual pattern. Keep going, keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Go find something to eat. All right. Okay, back to the yoga. So what I've done is I've created this little bolster. I've laid it down here on my mat. I'm going to lay myself over it. Now, the reason we're doing it like this, and there's lots of different options, and we'll do a different one at the end. But the reason we're doing this one, with the blanket specifically, is because we're going to hang out for a little bit, and this will allow the head of our arm bone to release down in and the shoulder blade to release onto the back. And this is really subtle work that we're talking about, okay? So it's not work that we are going to feel a lot of stretch in. It's just going to be really mild. But at the end, I think we will find that we will feel some really interesting sensations. Okay, let me chase my spider friend across the room. Alrighty, here we go. So start by laying down, and I like to position the blanket so it's right down the middle of my back, and it stops just at the below point, where just below my bottom rib. So the first lumbar vertebrae or so. Some people will want the blanket to come all the way down to the sacrum. For me, it doesn't always match the curve of my spine, so leaving a little bit of space there feels better. And then you can, if you want to, just create like a little lump where your head relaxes. Now, here's the thing. The muscles that we're getting to in the shoulder are very deep. And so, we don't necessarily want the arm to go way out to the side. When we take the arm way out to the side, we mostly get the big chest muscle, pectoralis major. So we want to go deeper in here to the little muscle that connects the rib cage to the shoulder blade. And then those muscles that stabilize the upper arm in the shoulder, and those are called your rotator cuff muscles. You might know those. So we want the arm to be closer to the body. We're not hugging it in. We're just going to try to find, like, where is the point where my arm naturally wants to go, and then put your arm there. Okay, so for me there, it's probably a foot or so away from my hips, my wrist or hand is. Now I like to start this with my feet on the floor, and then eventually it feels okay for me to kind of let my legs stretch all the way up. That changes things. Let me fix it. Yeah, that's feeling all right this morning. So you can do it either way, or you can choose a different leg position that works for you. And all we're going to try to do is just let the shoulder and the arm relax. And while we're letting gravity and time do the work for us, we're going to breathe and get steady and come home. A lot of thoughts, churning through my head these last week or two. It's been harder for me to focus. So these times where I get to spend really letting go in a yoga pose or in meditation are really lovely little moments to kind of drop all of that noise that's been going on in my head lately. And then just come home to the moment. It's a good place to land.
tuning me into just some of the little imbalances that might be present in my body from my sleeping position. And so it brings just a renewed awareness to what's happening right here, right now. Stay here for about another minute, you guys. Just pausing, breathing before we get into the flow of things. For this last little bit, because we're only here for about another 30 seconds or so, I'm going to really breathe deeply and try to fluff up my chest. Because the little muscle that we've been targeting at the front of the shoulder also aids me in deep breathing. So just spending this last few moments kind of getting that muscle to contract as well as release. And it's aiding me in this deep breath. One more nice big breath. And then we're gonna, all right, so we're gonna bring the legs back in and we're gonna roll off this blanket and then come back onto our back. So take the blanket out and then bring yourself back onto your back and just see what you notice. So the first thing I notice always is that there's sort of an impression left behind by the blanket. It sort of feels like it's still there a little bit. And then the second thing I try to check into is just what happened with my shoulders and how did they feel. And so what I like about the blanket is that it's more subtle compared to the thing we're gonna do at the end with the blocks. And it's a little more subtle kind of sense of my arm bone just kind of falling backward into my shoulder a little bit. So if you spend a lot of your day with your arms forward for whatever it is you do for work or just because you're whatever, you got nothing to do when you're on social media, any of those things, but the arm tends to kind of move forward, and so we actually train the rotator cuff muscles and this pectoralis minor, this muscle at the front of the shoulder that stabilize our shoulder. We train those muscles to hold us like that. And so this is essentially retraining, right? We're posturally retraining our shoulder girdle. So it's subtle, but I think it's really powerful and good work to do when you can. Now, that being said, we still want to stretch this big chest muscle. So we're going to do that, and we're going to get a little hip with one of my favorite poses, which is a reclining twist. So we're going to bring we're going to bring the legs around to one side. Now I'm going to use my blanket underneath my thigh here. And I'm going to take this other leg and just kind of kick it around so that I've got a little bit more tug in this direction. I'm going to get my upper back on the floor. And now I'm going to stretch this arm way out to the side so that I can get this big chest muscle that I can feel connected from my breastbone all the way to my arm bone. That big pec muscle, I can get that all stretched out. And I'm going to look this way today. I've kind of checked it out, but that's feeling like the way to go. And even I can kind of let my body fall in that direction to increase the amount of stretch I'm experiencing here if I'm not getting enough. I'm going to take 2 more breaths on this side. Lifting that leg and bringing my head with me, I'm going to come all the way back to the center. And now I can kind of rinse that whole thing out, chest and arm. And see if you just notice the difference in the way that feels compared to just that really subtle release. This is a much bigger, much more muscular release. And because this muscle is on the surface, right? It's much easier to feel. There's a lot more nerve endings that go to these muscles that are actually the ones that do the primary movement of our shoulder. And so it's definitely more sensitive. So I think that's really interesting. But I might be giving you info you're not really all that interested in. All right, so we're going to do the other side. This is the problem with my little curiosity and such, is that you guys may not be all that curious. So I'm going to wrap my leg around. Now some people can hook their foot behind, and you're welcome to do that. And then I get my upper back more level as best I can, and then I'm reaching out. Now find the angle that works best for you, right? For me right now, it feels like, the last few days, it's been best to kind of be right at shoulder height, basically, with my arm bone, and then kind of let everything roll that direction. Now you might feel this more as a hip stretch, which is true. I also feel it in the side of my hip. It's just, for me, that place that's tighter is the chest muscle. So that's the part that I feel the most. And in this case, the part I'm kind of going for. If my shoulder starts to lift off the floor, I know I'm going too far. So I pull myself this direction away from this stretch, or into the stretch, until I start to feel that levitation in my shoulder, then I come all back. If you get numbness or tingling in your fingers, try a slightly different angle with your arm, because there's a little nerve in here between the collarbone and the shoulder blade that could be getting a little pinchy. So we're going to take 2 more big breaths. Try to really power that really big breath, and then coming on back. Oh, give your legs a little windshield wipery. Oh, that feels good. And a little movement. And then just notice, like, does it make it feel like your hip is a little bit more interesting, your arms are a little bit more interesting, and how did that go? Now, while we're here, we'll do one more little bit, and this is kind of taking our twist on a ride. So I'm going to take my blanket and just put it up out of my way. Then I'm going to bring my knees in, and I'm going to float them about over the top rim of my pelvis or over my belly button, and just put my arms out to the side. I'm going to take the legs over to one side. Now, on this side, I got plenty of room. I could straighten out my legs or just straighten out one leg. In this case, I don't have a lot of room on the other side, so I'm just going to curl my knees into my armpit, come to the center, lift up and curl the knees in, and come to the other side and curl them in. So we're just going to do these 3 little curls. Curl. Now you can straighten out your legs if you've got lots of room, okay? So we're reaching into all these little abs that help us. Curl in, go back. Curl in, go back. Curl in, go back. And for whatever reason, this one makes me travel down my mat, which I find really fun. Oh. All right, let's do it 2 more times. We got 1. And 2. Oh. All right. Woo! Gosh, that feels nice. All right, yogis. Oh, we're rolling it over to all 4s. Oh. Now, once you get here, you can do all of those movements with your spine that feel good. Oh, that one's a weird one. this shape I was making, is that gonna go with this shape? Oh, that one's weird. Oh, it'll get used to it. Good. Now, let's do 2 more breaths here. I'm gonna do a little stretch on my wrist for 1 breath. And then on the other wrist for the other breath. Okay. Now, take your right leg back, and we're gonna just reach through that leg and kind of feel it out. Like, what happens if my hip is up? What happens if my hip is level? And then reach through that arm on the other side. And then I'm gonna put my arm back down, but just the fingertips. I'm gonna hook this leg up like a little scorpion tail, and then bring it in and curl up. Little scorpion tail, bring it in, curl up. Little scorpion tail, bring it in and curl up. 1 more little scorpion tail, and then I'm coming all the way through with that leg to bring myself into a lunge. I'm gonna go a little backwards and forwards here. Just feeling out this lunge. And a little hamstring action. And so I'm gonna start with the lunge here. I'm gonna open it to the side, twist it around, open it to the side, twist it around. I'm gonna do that 1 more time. Open it to the side, twist it around. Now when I come back around, I'm gonna straighten out the front leg and fold over it. And this is where these blocks really come in handy for me, because it's nice to have a little structure. What is happening with your hamstrings, y'all? It might be that you want to keep your knee a little bent, or you want to stay up a little higher. Some people might want to inch their foot out a little further because they're not feeling anything. Ooh, but go lightly, it's early yet. Okay, so we're going to come to the diagonal here. And I'm going to put my hands on the floor almost like I'm going to come into a downward dog. So just walking the hands way out and kind of folding over. I still have this straight leg, and it's a little spicier, especially on this inner edge. Okay, last big breath here. Oh, and then I'm going to walk it back to the center and sweep that leg back out and put it down. All right. So we're going to do the other side. So notice a little bit, see how things went. And then take that opposite leg up. All right, so there we are. And then I'm going to take this arm off and stretch those two. So I've got that spinal balance. Hug in a bit through the abs. Reach. Kind of hug into that shoulder as well. So you're lifting up into your back. Beautiful. And then fingertips on the floor, and we're going to hook that guy up and bring it in. Hook it up, bring it in. Hook it up, bring it in. 1 more time. Hook it up, and then bring it all the way through. And we'll take that into our lunge, which I'm going to move forward and move back. Ooh. Oh, just feeling that little thing out there. All right. So then I'm up for the lunge. I've kind of found the spot my hip wants to be in. Open into the side, and then rotating it. Opening out to the side. Exhale around into the rotation. Do that 1 more time. And then as I inhale, coming back to the middle, this is where I'm going to straighten out my leg and fold. And I'm trying to go closer to the center line for this one. We're going to get to that diagonal line in a second. So for me, I feel this way more on this outer part of my hamstring area. That may or may not be true for you. So now I'm going to bring myself to this diagonal, start with my hands just stretching out, and then see if I can walk it forward and kind of fold a little more like downward dog. or puppy dog. And again, for me, this has shifted now to the inner part of my thigh, my hamstrings, and my adductors. Take a nice deep breath, couple more. Oh, all right, y'all, we're gonna back this thing up. We're gonna bring this guy back. Oh. And then you can take a little child's pose here and give yourself a moment. Oh. Or if you like, you can do a few more rounds of cat. I'm gonna get something to tether my hair, and then I shall join you. Oh. Now, from either your child's pose or your cat, just kind of bring yourself back into a downward facing dog. And while we're here, just feel yourself kind of moving in the shoulders a bit. What happens if you activate different muscles? Okay, just feeling that, shaking your head out a little. And then give your legs a little walk. Oh. Oh. All right, so we're gonna take a little journey to the top of the mat, but we're gonna take this nice and slow. So I'm taking it one step up, and I've gone kind of on the wide side. I still have weight in my upper body. I'm still hugging in a little bit on my shoulders, trying to keep my shoulders nice and steady. And then I'm gonna step it in again and again. At this point, I could shift the weight into my feet, but I'm gonna keep a little bit in my upper arms, a little in my shoulders. Okay. And then I'm just gonna let myself put all the weight in my feet. Now I've got wide feet, but I'm gonna go a little wider. I'm gonna turn sideways, so this will be easier to see. Turn the toes out a little bit. Bend your knees a little bit. We're just gonna go a little side to side here, okay? To the right, to the left. Kind of light right now. We're gonna build up a little deeper later. Just a little side to side. And then we're gonna come into the squat and bring ourselves up so our hands are resting on the thighs. Now, I like a little bit of give here. You can come into a deeper squat if you like. One hand on each thigh. And then we're gonna roll right shoulder forward, left shoulder back. You can look over that left shoulder if you like. Left shoulder forward, right shoulder back. Right shoulder forward, left shoulder back. Oh. Left shoulder forward, right shoulder back. One more. Oh. Good, and then coming all the way up to standing and giving yourself a nice big stretch. Oh. We're gonna heel toe it together. And you probably are at the top of your mat, so you just heel toe, heel toe, heel toe till you're there. And then we're gonna find our way into a mountain pose. Now, I have my own ideas about mountain pose. And one of the ideas that I have is that I want you to find the mountain pose from the center of your being, right? Rather than from your extremities. So don't do anything with your arms right now. Lift up onto your tiptoes. Take your toes off the floor. Let's just find the center. Let's find the balance. Okay, so we kind of find that center piece. Our spine, our rib cage, our pelvis. Okay, and how those relate to each other. So plant your feet nice and firm on the floor. I turn my toes all the way forward. And then I keep them a little on the wide side because it feels more stable, right? In mountain, not all mountains are stable, but they're more stable than they are not. Now there's a tendency for me to want to dump my pelvis forward. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but there's still a tendency there. So for me, I need to engage my abs a little bit so that I keep my pelvis in a stable place. And then that automatically makes me feel taller. And then there's a tendency in some practices to rotate the arms out. Well, that is okay
in certain instances, if I have weak muscles in my back, that might be appropriate. But for me, my muscles in my back are strong. They're too strong. And so doing that makes it worse. So for me, relaxing the top of my shoulder is really important for creating that stability and that balance, okay? So I do more work from my core and less work from my shoulder. And then for me, that brings my pose into balance. Now you have to figure out your own pose, right on? And so like with those signposts, maybe you can navigate your way through your own body mechanics into a mountain pose. Something that feels stable, slightly vulnerable, because we're open-hearted here, we're not protecting. Right? And there's work. I'm not working, but my knees aren't locked out, and my arms aren't locked out, and I'm not creating tension around my neck or shoulders. Okay? Take one more breath here, just in this mountain pose, before we start flowing. And we lose our place here. So we're going to take the arms up. I'm going to smack a plant if I go wide. So I'm actually going to go straight up the center. And you can go wide if you've got the room. And then we're going to take the left arm down and give it a little stretch over to the left. Now, if you want to increase that, you can reach between the two arms. And then we're coming back to the center, taking a nice big, tall mountain. Maybe there's a tiny bit of a baby back bend there. Then that right arm's going to go down, and I'm going to bend over to my right side. And again, I could reach into those two arms to increase that amount of stretch, but be nice to your spine. Coming back, reaching up. And again, I might, create that little baby back bend. Now I'm going to fold forward gently. Inhale, come up halfway. That's a flattening out kind of experience and a chance to kind of roll those arm bones back a little bit. And then I'm going to fold and step back into down dog. Now down dog is going to be kind of a touchstone, and then we're going to have another touchstone, which is this kind of wide leg forward bend kind of shape. So for our first one, we're here, just noticing again, like, do you tend to kind of hyper weirdness in your shoulders? Can you get your shoulders in a nice, neutral, strong place? Okay, because that nice, neutral, strong place is going to aid us as we come into plank. So I don't want to collapse in my plank. I want to feel myself lifted. If you're having trickiness there, put your knees down and lift, right? Really feel yourself engage through that upper back. Middle part of your back is really important here. And then we're going to lower down. Got a block in my way. We're going to lower down with control. You might stop at chaturanga. You might come all the way down. We're going to come into either a cobra or an upward dog. I like a cobra. You can do you. And then we're going to come back to that down dog position through that plank and back. Okay? So I'm going to take my right foot up and kind of hook it over my back like a scorpion tail, and then bring it in, kind of like we did with that cat shape, right? Hook it over, bring it in, and then one more time hooking it over, and this time I'm going to step it forward, and I'm going to come into this high lunge shape, right? So again, I'm here, balanced on my toes. I want to get my hips oriented so they're balanced going forward. You can put a block under your hand if that's helpful here. And we're just going to pause for a moment and rock a little back and rock a little forward, okay? Rock a little back, rock a little forward, rock a little back. Now I'm going to straighten out my front leg a little bit and press into my heel on the back. So I'm getting a little extra stretch there. Then I'm going to bend this knee and walk myself to this diagonal. And again, kind of stretching out, but this time with my fingers in this little spidery shape. And then I'm going to lift up onto my tiptoes on both feet and lengthen out here. Taking a big breath. I got both my heels off the ground. And then plant the heels, spin the left heel back around. We're going to come up to warrior two. Ooh. Ooh, sometimes that's a big lift. Come back to reverse warrior. Straighten out your leg. We're going to go into triangle pose. And then our triangle is going to go back and forth a couple times, right? So bend the knee and straighten it out. Bend the knee, straighten it out. Now I'm working with my shoulder right here, right now. Right, so my hand is resting on my hip. And every time I went bent, I let my shoulder come forward.
And as I'm straightening out this leg, now I'm rolling my shoulder back, not with a lot of force, but with awareness of the connection in my upper back. Now I'm gonna swing my arm all the way around in a circle, all the way around in a circle, open up through the chest right there. I'm pushing into this block on the bottom. And so when I get to here, I'm gonna stretch in all directions, down, up, through the legs. All right, and just feeling all the angles of this triangle. It might have more than 3. Last breath here. And then I'm gonna come out of here, coming back around to this wide angle shape. A little wider maybe. We're gonna come over to one side and then the other, and to one side and then the other. Oh, this is my favorite thing right now. One side and then the other, and I'm gonna wander back around and turn this into downward dog. All right, first I'm gonna get a drink and then I'm gonna do that. Oh, all right. So once I'm in downward dog with a big groan, just noticing the 2 hemispheres of my body. And can you feel a difference? Oh, I love that difference. And so again, I'm gonna come into a plank, right? So I've got really strong back muscles. Reach through the heels, lift through the thighs, or put your knees down and lengthen through your tailbone. Lift into that upper back. And then we're lowering down and coming into the back bend that's right for you. Oh, I feel good. And then taking yourself back up and back to down dog. All right, so we're doing this other leg. So that left leg comes up, hooks over, curl it in, hook it over, oh, curl it in, hook it over, oh, and then we're gonna step it forward. And this is that lunge. I'm gonna bring this block into place. And again, I want my hips at this moment pointing forward, okay? So I'm in this lunge. I'm gonna straighten out my leg and press back through my heel, and then come back to this lunge, lift through the thigh. Back, press through the heel, come in, lift in through the thigh. One more time, I'm going back. Oh, I'm gonna straighten out as much as I can. And then I'm gonna come back here. So I'm up on my toes, and I come to this diagonal on my fingertips, and I'm lifting my heel off the ground on both sides and letting myself, stretch into that. Ooh, that feels good and weird. All right, so coming back a little bit, spinning this heel around to the right so that I can come up to my warrior 2. However your warrior landed. So coming back and forth. Oh, I'm going to straighten out that leg and come into triangle. And again, I'm going to start my triangle just by finding the footing. And then my hand kind of resting on my hip. Bending my knee, letting my shoulder roll forward, straightening that leg, trying to draw my shoulder blade into my arm, into my back. I'm not working from the head of my arm bone. I'm trying to work from my deep back muscles, okay? So bend and coming back. And bend and coming back. Feel those muscles right between your shoulder blades kick on. Here we go. So I'm gonna kick that muscle right between my shoulder blades on. There's a couple of them there. And then I'm gonna take my arm through a circle. Oh, a circle. Oh, a circle, and then stretch into the edges. Oh. One more breath. Reach in all directions. Oh, and then we're gonna come back to the center. Oh, and go a little over to one side. Oh, maybe it can go a little deeper now. Maybe not. Over to the other side. Over to the first side. Over to the other side. Woo, one more on each side. Now I'm going to come back to the center, and since I've done both sides now, I'm going to pause for a wide angle forward bend. I turn my toes in a bit,
and brought my feet in a little closer. You might want yours a little further back. And then I'm just letting my upper body get really drapey. Oh. Rinse tension out of your neck and out of your shoulders. Oh. Last breath here. I told you that was going to be our other touchstone. And then we're coming back into downward dog. Just walking it around and finding your dog and feeling the difference. Oh, my heels get closer to the ground as we go along. Oh, all right, yogis. We're coming down to our bellies. So come through your plank. You can modify that plank as you like. Lower all the way down and back myself up a little bit. Oh, okay. Now, we're going to do some cobras to start with. We're going to start up high. Okay. So the hands are up next to the collarbones, maybe fingertips about collarbone height. Press your palms into the floor. Activate through your legs. Lift yourself up off the floor. Try to use your back muscles. Hold with your arms if you like. And then come on back down. Now, we're going to slide the hands back about an inch. Spread the fingers out. Press the palms down. Lift. Now draw those muscles right between your shoulder blades towards each other. Good. Feel yourself kick on both of those muscles. Oh, there's actually 3 of them, but we'll get to that later. Slide your hands back. Last round. Lift. Draw those muscles together. Lift your legs. Stretch everything out. Now take your arms back and keep that connection in your shoulders. Last breath. Beautiful. Come on down. Give yourself a moment. A little child's pose if that suits ya. If not, all fours. And then, take one more breath. Let's get some downward dog going. So we'll take ourselves back to our friend the dog. And this is our chance to get up to the top of our mat again. So we're gonna either take a slow walk, or you can jump up there if you want. Hang out when you get there. Come up halfway. Exhale, fold. Get a little loose. And then come all the way to standing. Oh. Oh. Now, we're going to find that mountain pose again. Oh, it feels so good. It's nice to come to mountain again after you've done a bunch more movement. Feel it a second time. Then we're going to take the arms straight up, nice big stretch. Oh, left arm goes to the left, a little bend that way. When you come back to the middle, nice big tall stretch, sink into chair pose. Take the weight into your right leg, take your left leg up on top. And we'll take a moment just pausing here. You can do as you like with your hands. Oh. Keeping your eyes steady, trying to keep the pose steady. Might not work out. And then we're going to pick up this left leg and step it back. So we're going to start with this high lunge position. Okay? And then I'm going to straighten out my front leg, press my heel towards the ground in the back, and bring myself back into that lunge. Whoop, whoop. Might get wobbly. Straighten out the leg, press the heel down, bend. Now, pausing here, bend your back knee a little bit, lift your pelvis up. Feel that maybe in the quad. You can bend your knee more if you want more of that. Beautiful. Then we're going to spin this around to our warrior two shape, and I might need to adjust. Come on back to reverse warrior. Over to side angle. I'm a little slippery. Whee! Back to reverse. Over to side angle. Now we're going to pause right here and reach this whole angle, right, as one long line. And turn the shoulder a little bit in so the pinky rolls in, and feel that through your lat. Big muscle in your back. Now we're going to take this to a half moon balance. So I'm going to reach out and lift, okay? And you might use a block under your hand, try to stretch. And this right leg could be getting tired. Sometimes that happens. So then, if you want to grab that foot, you can. I'm just going to bring my arm back, bring my foot in, and imagine I could. And then I'm going to bring that foot down. Whew, come up halfway. Exhale, fold, and shake it out. And then, come all the way to standing. Give it a little stretch. Whew, shake it off. And then, find your mountain pose again. Because, wasn't that fun? And it feels really asymmetric now. This side's different, for me anyway, different than this side, okay? So that's kind of fun. So nice big stretch up. Take that right arm down, right side stretch. Coming back up and sinking it into chair pose. Weight on the left leg, right leg comes up. And then you can sink into that as you like. Oh, I love a balance pose. They're wobbly. They take a lot of concentration, which I haven't had a lot of lately. And then we're going to take one more breath. And then I'm going to step myself back to that high lunge. Oh. And so I'm more upright. I'm finding the right amount of positioning for myself. Straightening out the front leg and letting that back heel reach for this floor. It might not go all the way down. Bend. Straighten. Reach for the floor. Bend. Straighten. Reach for the floor. Now I'm going to bend this knee in the back, pick up my pelvis, and try to feel that maybe in that quad. And again, you can bend your knee more if it feels like it's inviting you to do that. And then I'm going to open this up to the side. When you're ready, join me here for Warrior Two. A little reverse because it feels good to stretch. And then a side angle. I'm going to do that one more time. Try to get my feet just right. And then come into your side angle pose and lengthen this whole side. Lift a bit, turn that whole shoulder blade so that your pinky finger reaches towards the bottom. Give yourself some length. I'm not laying on my leg, but I'm using it for balance. Lengthen. It feels good. All right, yogis, here we go. We're gonna take this into that half moon balance. So I'm gonna reach out here. I'm gonna pop that leg up. Might take more than one step. I might be using my furniture. To catch me before I fall on it. Nice big stretch. And then bend your knee if you can. Reach back for that foot. If not, just fake it. And then bring the leg in. Woo! That's fun. Shake everything. We're stepping back into downward dog. Now, if you want to throw in a vinyasa, go for that. If you just want to hang out with me and hang out with downward dog and see how things went, do that. So we're going to come into a pigeon pose. Now, you can flip your pigeon, so you can come down to your knees and flip upside down, or if you'd like, you can bring your right leg forward. And then I'm going to take this blanket I had earlier and put that in underneath my hip so that as I stretch this leg back, I have a little bit of a landing pad. Because it makes it a little bit kinder for me, especially in the morning. And then I'm going to use my blocks to kind of hold me in this back bending shape without as much effort. And I can press my elbows in and draw my shoulder blades back to kind of create a little bit more of this structure of the back bend. Strengthening those muscles right in the center of my back. Letting the muscles on the top that want to bring my shoulder up, letting those relax. But strengthening the muscles in the very middle of my back by engaging them to bring my shoulder blades onto my back and towards each other, okay? It feels nice. We're gonna take it for about, probably 3-4 more big breaths.
If it's too spicy, flip yourself upside down. It works. Just bring your leg into your chest. It'll work. It's not exactly the same, but dang, it's close enough. Nice big inhale. Let go with a big. All right, we're leaning into this bent leg hip, and we're bringing our back leg around. And we're going to put this guy in some way up on top. Now, I am going to make this really simple for myself and just come to a cross-legged sitting position with this leg up front. But you can bring your knee all the way around. You do you. But if you're kind of new, this is a great place to start because it doesn't torque the pelvis as much. I can keep my pelvis really level, and that lets me really express this pose with my spine. So we're going to lean back just a little bit, sit up tall, rotate towards that leg that you brought around or that's on top. I'm going to hold onto it with my hand, and I'm going to take this shoulder blade and bring it into my back and see if I can touch the floor. I can't always. And then you can turn your head towards the back or the front, or I like to do this little float between them for 3 rounds. Inhaling to the center, exhaling to the back. And then I pick one. And yesterday I really liked the looking back, but today I'm really liking the looking forward, so I'm going to do that one. And then I'm still drawing my shoulder blades towards each other and into my back, lifting, anchoring into my sit bones. Oh, all the good work. And we're going to take one more breath. I'm going to unwind this whole pose. Oh. And then just take a moment. You can do little like shimmies. You can add some dance moves. Whatever seems right to you. Oh. Whew. All right, yogis. We got another side for our pigeon. So I'm going to roll this whole thing around and into my downward dog. You might want to throw in a whole vinyasa. I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm excited to see how you do it. Oh. Or I'm excited for you anyway. I probably can't see it. So in any case, once you're back and you're ready, you can take your left leg forward. And again, I'm going to take my folded blanket here and give myself a little landing pad so that as I stretch my leg back, I've got a little kind place to land. And again, you might find like if there's pain in your knee or pain in your hip, this is a really spicy pose for a lot of us. And so you definitely can flip this baby upside down. And then I'm here, right? So the back bend is here. And so that is as far as I can go without causing trouble. But it also feels very extreme, so I can hang out here for a bit. But this guy almost becomes more like a forearm balance for me. So I'm going to kind of activate my upper back in the same way that I would if I were going to stretch back into that dolphin or into that forearm balance. So I can strengthen these muscles in my upper back a little bit, kind of using the blocks to push off of. Again, I'm going for this area right between the bottom tips of my shoulder blades, more than I'm going for my up by my neck. As low as I can get it in the back, that's where I'm going. And we're breathing. And in my case, sweating profusely. Oh, sunshine and warmer day. All right, so we're going to take 2 more breaths. We're going to kind of lean it over to the side and bring that back leg around when you're ready. And then you're going to find yourself in this position that you did last time. So whatever your twisting position was. So sitting cross-legged or with your knee up. Lean back a little bit, get taller, twist, bring yourself back to the center. And you might try this kind of change up in the neck. See if you can engage that shoulder blade into your back a little bit. And open up some of those tight places in the front of the shoulder if they're there.
activate those back muscles. And I'm definitely like in the front today, so I'm going this way with my head and letting that kind of shoulder experience get a little taller. Oh. Breathe a little deeper. Root your sit bones down. Two more breaths. So I'm going to unwind my head and then unwind my spine. I'm going to take a moment here, give everything a little jiggle. Now, I told you we were going to shake it up a little bit at the beginning, that we were going to kind of wrap back around to where we were. We were going to do something a little more extreme. Now, you'll need yoga blocks or either some larger pillows if you don't have yoga blocks for this. Now, just a little side note. I don't know when we're going to be able to go back into yoga studios and gyms and things like that to practice yoga together, but I can guarantee you that at least for the next year, there's not going to be any sharing of yoga props. So a good idea is to invest in some yoga props, and blocks are probably the least expensive, and a strap, least expensive yoga props you can invest in. So if you can invest in those, definitely do. I know that it may not be possible for all of us, but if you can, do that. Okay, so what I'm doing with my one block is I'm putting the narrow edge like it's going down my spine, like I did with that blanket, and it's on the medium size, okay, medium. And then I'm taking the next block and putting it on its highest edge, and that's going behind there. I'm going to rest my head on this block, and I'm putting this block right in the area between my shoulder blades. This is not going to be the most comfortable thing I've ever done. Okay, but it's interesting. So we're going to come around. I'm going to lower myself onto this block. Oh, I have to kind of play with it. I want it to start like right at the bottom part of my shoulder blade, maybe a tiny bit lower than that. And then I'm going to adjust this block. Now, this is not nearly as comfortable as the blanket, and I'm definitely leaving my legs like this to start with. I might eventually straighten them out, but for now I'm leaving them like this. So, I don't know if you can feel this, but can you feel how much more extreme this stretch is? So this is basically camel pose, right? Being held by the blocks. And so I have kind of come all the way around, all this work I've been doing with my upper back muscles to try to kind of stabilize and play with my shoulders is now coming all the way around to this kind of extreme back bending shape, which I'm letting gravity help me with. So we're gonna stay here for a little while, about like a whole minute and a half. It's not gonna be forever, but it's a long time. Now my body is starting to soften, so I'm gonna try a straight leg. Yep, that's all right. Let's try the second one. Oh yeah, that's all right. Okay. You may want to stay with your legs bent in that bridge position. And I'm trying to let gravity kind of pull on my arm bones. I take them out to the side. It gets much more stretchy in my chest muscle. I feel a little bit like Leonardo DiCaprio in the Titanic. Or like a ship's masthead, maybe. I don't know if I feel like king of the world or not, but you get the idea. Oh, goodness.
off these blocks. And then we're going right into Shavasana. So the first thing I've got to do is take this guy out from under my head. Now I go off the side to get the other one out. Oh. And then you're just gonna come onto your back, oh, and see what happened. And usually the after effect for me is nice, right? And this is the one where, because it's a little more extreme, the sensation of this is more in my back. Like my whole upper back feels like it spreads out wide. I'm not noticing it right at my arm bone, but I am noticing it at my back. So this is like poses that seem like they're interchangeable, can be, depending on what your goal is, but they can also be very different from one another. All right, so I'm gonna put this blanket underneath my legs since it's right here, and I like that. And then we're gonna stretch ourselves out and kind of feel out your low back. If you need a little more support, put more support under there. If you need it to be in a slightly different position, kind of adjust it. Oh, I like it under my thighs, but not really under my glutes. And then I'm gonna take the edge of my mat and just make the tiniest little kiss of a support for the back of my skull, because I find that really helps me relax. If I can get that little ridge on the very back of my skull supported just lightly. I don't want it to be too much because then it adjusts my neck out of position, but just a little bit feels very deeply soothing. And then let yourself basically just rest in your back body and let the back body rest into the floor or the earth or your deck, wherever it is you're doing this yoga class. Yogis, we're just going to stay for a wee bit longer. And if you are still here, then hopefully it's because you know you love Shavasana. You're already a fan. But if you stayed and you've been sort of anxious or fidgety, just take a moment and just notice your breath again. Take a breath so deep you can feel it all the way to your toes. Get all the way down there. And then let it go with a sigh. Or a giggle, whichever way it works. And then start wiggling your fingers and toes. give your wrist and ankles a little movement. And then we're gonna stretch everything in multiple directions as needed. Oh, bring your knees into your chest. Give yourself a little back massage. Oh, that's nice, yogis. Oh, it feels good. So we're gonna bring ourselves to a seated position eventually. So thanks for joining me for a little Friday morning Vinyasa yoga. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let's take a big old breath together. Take a nice big deep breath. Let go with a big ah. Namaste, yogis. Enjoy the rest of your day.